For the next video, we will be looking at Mao Zedong turning China communist in 1949. The American policy of containing communism had been focused on Europe, but it was thousands of miles from the Soviet sphere of influence that communism next appeared. The Chinese Revolution of 1949 caused great concern in the West. Another large country with a huge population and lots of natural resources had overthrown capitalism and moved to communism. Although China was devastated after World War II, the war had also brought an alliance between the communists and nationalists within China, who had been fighting for control of the country in the years before the war. When the war ended, the alliance between the communists and the nationalists also ended. The country was in brutal civil war by 1946. By 1949, the communists, led by Mao Zedong, had the upper hand. On October 1st, 1949, Mao Zedong declared the establishment of the People's Republic of China, and the nationalists retreated to the island of Taiwan. China's revolution had caused serious concern in the USA and other Western countries, as it meant that the most highly populated country had fallen to communism. The US government believed that China's new regime was a win for Stalin, but the reality was more complex. Unlike the countries of Eastern Europe, China would never be part of the Soviet sphere of influence, and for Truman, China's fall to communism represented a failure in his policy of containment. The USSR was the only major country to recognize Mao Zedong's communist government in the People's Republic of China in 1949. For the rest of the world, the exiled nationalist government on the island of Taiwan was the legal government in China. Mao Zedong looked to the USSR to help develop their communist country and help protect China from American influence. In February 1950, China and the USSR signed a treaty of friendship. The treaty stated that $300 million of aid would be provided to China from the USSR. 95% of this would be repaid, and the interest was high. There was also a requirement that most of the money was to be spent on Soviet products. 8,000 Chinese students were allowed to travel to the USSR to study technology and science. 20,000 Soviet experts were sent to help the development of China. The advice was often questionable and seemed to benefit the USSR more than People's Republic of China. And finally, China had to give two of its major ports the right to mine in Xinjiang territory to the USSR. Despite this treaty of friendship, Stalin and Mao Zedong's interpretation of communism was different. Mao Zedong's supporters were peasant farmers, whereas the Russian Revolution was led by urban factory workers. After the death of Stalin, the relationship between China and the USSR started to break down. The West viewed the communist takeover in mainland China as a serious failure of the Truman Doctrine. To stop communism spreading further in Asia, millions of US dollars were pumped into Taiwan and Japan to help build their economies. The USA and its allies refused to acknowledge Mao Zedong's new Chinese government, insisting instead that the nationalists in control of Taiwan should be China's representatives at the United Nations.